Dear students, in this module, it is aimed to understand the necessary aspects related to two more methods of data collection, namely interview and focus group discussion. The minor topics to be covered here are meaning and importance of interview and focus group discussion as methods of data collection, objectives and types of interviews, steps involved in conducting personal interview and focus group discussion, and advantages and disadvantages of both these methods of data collection. First, we will focus upon the interview method, its meaning and importance. In social science research, the interview is the most commonly used method of data collection. In simple words, it can be said that an interview is a verbal communication or two-way conversation between two persons, that is the interviewer and the interviewee, to get information pertaining to a problematic situation. Gooday and Hatt defines an interview as a face-to-face conversation or dialogue between the investigator and interviewer and the interviewee, or it is a process of social interaction between the interviewer and the interviewee. Another social science researcher by name Kurlinger said that interview is a face-to-face interpersonal situation in which one asks questions from the other to get answer about a social problem. According to Burns, an interview is a verbal interchange, often face-to-face, though the telephone may be used, in which an interviewer tries to elicit information, beliefs or opinions. From these definitions, one can say that an interview is a person-to-person interaction, either face-to-face or otherwise, between two or more individuals with a specific purpose in mind. Coming to the objectives of interview method, mainly helpful in collecting information about an existing social problem, create relationship between interviewer and interviewee, gain inner feelings of the respondents, gain new knowledge about an area. It also helpful in observe the situation quickly. It will be helpful in collect additional information and draw quantitative as well as qualitative facts. Coming to the several types of interviews, mainly personal interview and in-depth interview, group interview and focus group interview, structured and unstructured interview, etc. However, in the present context, two types of interviews which are most commonly used in social science research, that is the personal interview and focus group interview or discussion, are discussed in detail. Firstly, we will focus on personal interview. This is a universally used by all social science researchers. In this method, a person known as the interviewer, that is mostly the researcher, asks questions to face-to-face contact with the other person or persons. This sort of interview is largely direct personal investigation, through which the interviewer personally collects information about the topic of her interest from the persons whom the researcher would like to contact. The researcher should be present on the spot, mostly in the field setting, meet the concerned persons, ask the questions and collect the required information from them. Mostly personal interviews are carried out with an interview schedule on a given research topic, and thereby such interviews are also named as structured interviews. Sometimes the researcher tries to collect information intensively from a few selected persons, which is known as the in-depth interview. Personal interviews are mostly conducted at the person's residence or place of work. For some target populations, this is the only feasible method of data collection. For example, the target group with low literacy levels or illiterates, or when the survey requires a visit to selected sample of respondents or to locate members of a particular population. When large scale surveys are conducted, the researcher or researchers may employ field investigators and train them in the basics of the interview method, so that the field investigators become field interviewers and collect the needed information from respondents living in the field setting. A few steps have to be followed for conducting a personal interview in a meticulous manner. For example, they are rapport building, introduction, asking questions and probing, recording and closing interview. Firstly, we will focus upon rapport building. For a successful personal interview, rapport building or building rapport with the respondents is very much essential. In simple words, rapport is a relationship marked by mutual understanding and trust between the interviewer, that is the researcher, and the interviewee, that is the respondent. Rapport is commonly of rapport is a commonality of perspective, being on the same wavelength as the person with whom you are talking. At the beginning of a personal interview, the interviewer and the respondent are strangers to each other. So, the main task of an interviewer is to build rapport. For this purpose, generally the appearance should be neat and the approach should be a friendly manner at the time of introducing himself or herself. One should make a good impression in approaching the respondents at first so as to put them at ease. Matching of researchers' body language, that is posture, gesture and so forth, and maintaining eye contact with that of the respondent is very much essential. The researcher must establish pleasant, receptive and patient behavior. The respondents must feel that the researcher is interested in the respondent's information. The researcher should make an attempt to develop trust in respondents by demonstrating warmth and genuineness and exhibiting empathy. To maintain rapport till the end of the interview, the researcher must not interpret what the respondent speaks, rather should help the respondent in overcoming their persistent inability or expression. The respondent must be given time to think and explain things in their own words. Some of the points to be kept in mind for a better rapport building are: researchers should understand the other person's model of the world. Researchers should take a genuine interest in getting to know what is important to the other person. One should understand the respondents rather than expecting them to understand you first. Pick up on keywords, favorite phrases and ways of speaking that someone uses and build these cleverly into their own conversation. Clear basic doubts regarding the topic, if any. Look out for the other person's interaction, that is their underlying aim rather than what they do or say. Adopt a similar stance to them in terms of your body language, gestures, voice tone and speed. Respect the other person's time, energy, favorite people and money, because they will be important resources for them. The second step in the personal interview method is introduction. The researcher, that is the interviewer, after reaching the interviewee respondent, firstly greets the respondent warmly and tells the respondent the importance of the research topic, how the respondent was selected for the research, how valuable the information is provided by the respondent is for the research, etc., so that the respondent should understand the importance of the research. The researcher or field investigators have to inform the respondents about the organization for which they are working, sponsorship if any, letter of introduction and better to show proof of identity also. The doubts, if any, asked by the respondents need to be clarified patiently. Researchers also have to inform about the confidentiality of the information to be provided by the respondents, and they should be assured that their name will not be revealed at any point of time and the data collected are used primarily for research purpose only. Thirdly, asking questions and probing. In personal interviews, asking questions should be followed in a manner of sequence as with structured interviews, as far as possible straightforward and clearly. Generally, most personal interviews will be structured in nature, and therefore, the researcher must ask each question exactly as it is worded. In most cases, an interview schedule will be helpful in this regard. However, each question must be pre-tested so as express the precise meaning desired in as simple a manner as is possible. At times, the respondents may provide answers which may found to be inconsistent with the previous ones provided and are not clear to the researcher or to the context. At that point of time, the researcher can make use of probing technique, that is encouraging respondents to answer completely, freely and relevantly. Probing has to be done in a meticulous manner without affecting the sentiments of the respondents. This is because too much probing sometimes leads to discontinuation of the interview and or non-cooperation from the respondents to answer further. Fourthly, recording is another major step as far as personal interview is concerned. This is the hard task in the application of the interview method for the collection of data. Generally, recording the whole process of the personal interview is good. This can be done with the help of audio recording. However, the respondents have to be informed about the same in advance or before starting the interview. But such recording is mostly done in the case of in-depth interviews rather than time-bound structured interviews. In the case of collecting data from several persons, making use of an interview schedule to record the answers elicited by the respondents is common. These interview schedules are largely structured ones, either pre-coded or open-ended questions. In the recent past, researchers or interviewers have started to record the responses from respondents into a computer assisted program interview, popularly known as CAPI, loaded into computer tablets. As recording of the answers is the researcher's duty, he should be alert, free from bias, honest and interest in research. The final stage of the personal interview comes to an end with the closing of the interview. Like starting the interview, closing the interview is also crucial for the successful conduct of the interview. For this, firstly, the researcher has to check whether he or she has collected all the information needed so as to ascertain the completeness of data. Then the closing of the interview should naturally end rather than in a hurry or abruptly. If time permits, the researcher may have a general talk after the closing of the interview without affecting cooperation maintained between them till that point of the time. If time is short, the researcher can indicate the same to the respondent and leave for further work. While leaving, the interviewer must express thanks to the respondent for his cooperation for the interview. By and large, the parting should be pleasant and mutually satisfying. Coming to the advantages of personal interview, through personal interview, needed information, even complex ones, may be collected fully through this method. Qualitative information such as attitudes, beliefs, opinions, etc., as well as in-depth information can be collected more easily than other methods. Response rate will be much higher due to providing and feedback with this method. Possibility of collecting accurate and reliable information due to direct observation or respondents including facial expressions, body language, etc. Possible to convert refusals to fruitful ones and non-responses to responses as the interviewer is present and rapport can be developed. Through personal interview, there is opportunity to show pamphlets and visual aids to increase response rates. Coming to the disadvantages of personal interview, first and foremost one is bias is likely to crop up due to the researcher's socio-economic background, preconceived notions, beliefs, etc. This method is costly and time consuming. Through this method, there is difficult for callbacks. Respondents may not come out openly, may hesitate to give correct responses to personal and sensitive questions. There is also difficult to find out some respondents at home as may be convenient to the researcher. Further, in large scale surveys, difficulties may arise in hiring and retaining the interviewers as well as shifting workloads to less busy interviewers. Variances in responses due to interviewers' gender, honesty in collecting information, individual style of interviewing, etc. will be there. There is also difficulty to implement a quality control program for interviewing. Having learned about the personal interview, now we will move upon to the focus group interview, or popularly known as focus group discussion. What it means and what is its importance, we will see. The focus group interview is a type of group interview in which few respondents are involved and the researcher acts as a moderator focusing on a particular topic of research. In the focus group, the researcher tries to interview persons of a group simultaneously as a group, and thereby it is popularly known as focus group discussions or FGDs. This is one of the qualities of research methods, this is one of the qualitative research methods, and though its roots can be found in sociology, in the recent past it has been widely used in several disciplines of the social sciences, including population sciences, management and marketing, agricultural sciences, medical and health sciences, etc. It is mostly used individually or sometimes as part of mixed methods approach along with surveys. In simple words, a focus group discussion is a structured discussion used to obtain in-depth information, mostly qualitative data, from a group of people about a particular topic. The purpose of focus group is to collect information about people's opinions, beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, and not to come to a consensus or make a decision. Group discussion conducted several times until similar trends and patterns in perceptions, attitudes, and ideas are shown. Focus groups rely on interaction within the group based on topics supplied by the researcher. Focus group discussions are mostly used to gather opinions, beliefs, attitudes, perceptions, behaviors, and motivations about a topic. It is also used to identify needs for a program or service, as well as to test ideas, plans, programs, services, policies before introduction. FGDs are also used to obtain feedback about a program, service, policy after introduction, besides clarifying the information gained from individual interviews or written surveys, that is quantitative study. The application of FGDs related to population health are assessing the need for integrated services for HIV, gathering opinions of different stakeholders on the introduction of a national health insurance plan, evaluating the implementation of the integrated management of childhood illness, that is IMCI program, randomized control trials on interventions to reduce unintended pregnancies among adolescents, collecting information about the circumstances to have less number of children, opinions on practicing sterilization and induced abortion, etc. A few steps conducting the focus group discussion are listed here. They are identification of major objectives of FGD, developing questions, group size and potential members of the group, deciding the team members, planning, scheduling and refreshments if any, ground rules to be kept in mind, recording, transcription, data analysis and report writing. We will discuss a few words about these steps in detail. First and foremost one, identification of major objectives of FGD. Researchers want to carry out FGD need to first of all identify the appropriate research problem and thereby suitable objectives. As stated earlier, generally the topics for FGD will be selected with one or more objectives related to mostly exploring attitudes and opinions about certain social phenomena, services provided, etc. Secondly, developing the questions. For carrying out FGDs, the researcher by and large develops a few questions only, say for example 5 or 6 pertinent to the topics concerned. In fact, these questions may be very broad in nature. The researcher or who will be a moderator will present these questions to the group and initiate discussion about the same among the members of the group. Care also should be taken with regard to the group size and potential members of the group. The researcher also should decide the group size for the planned FGD. Generally, it varies in the range of 6 to 12. The rule in deciding the group size is a small group, that is 6 to 8 for complex topics and a large group about 10 to 12 for superficial topics. Further, the researcher should select the members in such a way that the members should be suitable to the research purpose with certain inclusion criteria also varying perspective. As far as possible, the members should be homogeneous in nature along some particular characteristic, that is something common among them like age, gender, those who received services, affected by any particular problems, etc. At the same time, the researcher should see that they are relatively unknown to each other, as sharing of sensitive issues is easier among relative strangers. The next step is deciding about the team members. The researcher should also decide well in advance about the members of the research team to conduct the FGD. Generally, in the case of sponsored research, 4 members were typically involved to conduct an FGD in a meticulous manner. They are the researcher, the moderator, who is also known as a facilitator, the note taker and the group organizer. In the case of research by individuals for which funds are borne by the researcher himself or herself, the researcher himself acts as a researcher cum moderator, while the note taker will take care of organizing the group besides the task of note taking job. Planning the session, scheduling and refreshments if any is the next step. The researcher here has to plan the session convenient to all members of the group at a suitable common place, such as a school compound, local self-government office, NGO's office, etc., where disturbance from the public should be less. At the same time, one should see that the place is calm and quiet, electricity supply is available for recording the whole discussion, cleanliness, etc. The time also has to be informed to all the members of the intended group. In order to attract or motivate the members of the group to participate and stay back till the end of the FGD, sometimes refreshments may be made available by the researcher. Ground rules to be kept in mind. For a successful FGD, the researcher has to follow certain ground rules related to the conduct of the FGD. These include expressing the ideas of the researcher clearly and concisely, listening to the members of the group patiently, encouraging the members also to listen to what others say, request members not to interrupt when the other members are speaking, see that the researcher is making relevant remarks related to the topic and discussion, accept the criticism gracefully and help the group to reach certain conclusions. Next step in the focus group discussion is recording. Recording the discussion of the focus group is a very tough task. As a moderator, it is the responsibility of the researcher to record the whole discussion among the members of the group by keeping audio recorder, that is tapes, at the appropriate place, generally the center of the group. He or she should also keep an eye on the power supply to the same without interruption. The note taker will note down specific crucial points, if any, reported by the members besides the circumstances, surroundings of the group, their peculiar expressions or behavior, if any, through observation. Next step in the focus group discussion is transcription, data analysis and report writing. This is a laborious and tough job in the application of the FGD. For this, first of all, the data recorded in audio tapes has to be heard by the researcher or moderator and the note taker so as to prepare transcripts of the same, and then the same may be matched, compared with the notes taken by the note taker. Then the transcripts have to be interpreted in a lucid manner. At times, for a proper interpretation, one can make use of the services or experiences of different experts. The interpretation and discussion has to be done based on each question or theme under consideration. One should capture the similarities and notable differences in the responses provided by the members of the group. While writing the report, besides the interpretation and discussion, the researcher may also quote verbatim selected members of the FGD without specifying their names. From all these, the researcher should generalize findings based on the different aspects of the research topic. Coming to the advantages of focus group discussion, it is easy to set up the focus group for discussion, fast and relatively inexpensive. It stimulates dialogue and new ideas, that is some sort of chaining and cascade effect, opportunity for disclosure among similar as interaction is there among the members, generates ideas for evaluation questions to be included in other survey methods. It is very flexible, it is socially oriented synergism, and a snowballing of ideas will be there in focus group discussions. Limitations wise, the discussion is the discussion in focus groups vary. Some will be talkative, some others will be quiet. At times, the discussion deviates from the subject of focus or interest. Sometimes some members may be shy, while some others may dominate. Cannot generalize the findings of the target population. Focus group discussion must be in an environment conducive to conversation. To a large extent, the FGDs are observer dependency. There is a difficulty to assemble the various members of the group together. The researcher has less control over the generated data. FGDs also demands the moderator to be trained carefully. In this module, we have discussed at length about the various aspects related to personal interview and focus group discussion as methods of data collection, in addition to their suitability as data collection methods in population studies. Hope with this knowledge one can make sure which type of methods will be aptly suits for your future research endeavors in population studies. Thank you.